Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching The Matrix Resurrections, starring Keanu Reeves, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Jessica Henwick, Jonathan Groff, and a bunch of characters you remember from the first film. Now, The Matrix, as I'm sure many of you remember, revolutionized action films when it came to what was expected from action films. Back in the 90s, action films didn't really have to do anything that special in order to gain an audience, but after The Matrix, it the Wachowskis really happened to get people to realize that in order to stand out, you need to have creative ideas or originality of your own, which was unfortunately hampered when the sequels Reloaded and the other one came out. However, in 2021, we have the latest film, Resurrections, for the series, and let's just say that Lana Wachowski certainly went back to her roots when it came to this one. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I do think it's the second best out of the Matrix films, if mainly out of nostalgia and mainly out of some of the new ideas the film gives us. But let's get to the story, shall we? In this film, Mr. Anderson, played by Keanu Reeves, is a video game developer who created a video game called The Matrix. And it seems at the beginning that he's wondering if his experiences in the last trilogy were real or if they were just in his head. Well, he gets his answer when he realizes there's a new Matrix made, and where it turns out that some of his friends from the first film might not be as dead as he thinks they are, especially when the new Morpheus comes to get him, and when he finds a woman named Bugs, played by Jessica Henwick. So, Anderson is on a journey to become Neo once again, as it seems that the system is still around. So yeah, the film happens to use a lot of story beats from the first three Matrix films to the point where it feels like it speed runs through parts of it. But despite this, the pacing still feels pretty cool and loose. It doesn't feel like it speeds through too much, even though it uses plot points from all three previous films. And I really think that Keanu Reeves changing as an actor and his perception that we've had over the 22 years since the first Matrix film has certainly helped with that. Back in the 90s, Keanu Reeves was still mostly known as, playing goofy characters like Ted from Bill and Ted, who he also reprised his role for. But nowadays, he's known as the badass assassin John Wick, so I do think that his change in demeanor reflects his changing perception as an actor. Plus, I like a lot of the new characters put in here. Neil Patrick Harris, who plays a really good psychologist, but also happens to have a really cool part in the film that I didn't expect. Jonathan Groff, I think, was born to play a Smith kind of character. Even though Hugo Weaving wasn't here, he still manages to capture Hugo Weaving's mannerisms and his basic demeanor. And I like Henwick as Bugs, considering that she doesn't feel like a Trinity type. She actually feels more like she's doing her own thing and feels almost like an audience surrogate at points. And considering that she was able to carry the Iron Fist series when she was around, it shows that she's actually able to carry a lot of other things when she's in good stuff like this. Plus, the action scenes do have a ton of nostalgia to them, especially if you remember the bullet time mechanics and the kung fu scenes from the first film. On top of that, I really like the visual effects and how they've evolved to the point where it feels like it's impressive for 2021 as opposed to just being impressive for 1999. On top of that, the film feels rather self-aware, especially in the first third. It goes over the philosophical stuff from the first Matrix, the costumes, the emphasis on the action, but also the interesting symbolic ideas of the film. It really happens to analyze the film as much as it repeats parts of it. Granted, that can feel like some parts are stuck on repeat, but I think there's a lot of cases where it feels like they just wanted to show that Lana Wachowski can still make a good Matrix film. And in some respects, she actually uses those old ideas in new and interesting ways that reflect our time a bit more. So I think they still worked. It's definitely not one of the year's best action films, and it's not going to be something that every Matrix fan will love, but I personally really enjoyed it. So that's why I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.